We are about to hear David Foster Wallace talk about boredom, and this is a central concept within Infinite Jest and the Pale King. And you could say at the end of his life, it was the main philosophical concept it was working on. So once we hear from David after the video, we are going to have a discussion on what he said because this is the new headquarters on YouTube of David Foster Wallace content. I'm planning on dropping hundreds of videos in 2023 on Wallace. So subscribe, check out the playlist down below for more videos. And now let's hear from Wallace.
No, there's a difference though, I think, between being mildly bored, but then there's another kind of boredom that I think you're talking about, which is reading requires sitting alone by yourself in a quiet room. And I have friends, intelligent friends, who don't like to read because it's not just bored. There's an almost dread that comes up, I think, here about having to be alone and having to be quiet. And you see that when you walk in. When you walk into most public spaces in America, it isn't quiet anymore. They pipe music through. And the music's easy to make fun of because it's usually really horrible music, but it seems significant that we don't want things to be quiet ever anymore. And to me, I don't know that I could defend it, but that seems to me to have something to do with when you feel like the purpose of your life is to gratify yourself and get things for yourself and go all the time. There's this other part of you that's the same part that can kind of is almost hungry for silence and quiet and thinking really hard about the same thing for maybe half an hour instead of 30 seconds, that doesn't get fed at all. And it makes itself felt in the body in a kind of dread in here. And I don't know whether that makes a whole lot of sense, but I think it's true that here in the US, every year the culture gets more and more hostile. And I don't mean hostile like angry, just it becomes more and more difficult to ask people to read or to look at a piece of art for an hour or to listen to a piece of music that's complicated and that takes work to understand because, well, there are a lot of reasons, but particularly now in computer and internet culture, everything is so fast. And the faster things go, the more we feed that part of ourselves, but don't feed the part of ourselves that likes quiet, that can live in quiet, that can live without any kind of stimulation. I don't know. It's an American idiom, going to hell in a handbasket. Things are getting worse and worse and worse. When we're saying it, are we just saying exactly what people our age said 100 years ago? There's no way ever to know how different we are.
Yeah. So Wallace is 100% correct here with his assertions, but it makes me wonder, was Wallace's inquiries into a society that rejects boredom one of the components that led to his eventual downfall? Because it's very heavy stuff to contemplate. For instance, I am a high school English teacher, and as Wallace just said, I don't want to be a gatekeeper, like so many others before me who are saying the next generation has lost everything. However, the attention span of kids since TikTok, short form content, virtual reality, the COVID lockdowns, and so many other things over the past 5 years has created a dramatic drop in the ability to sit in silence or do hard things. I have been teaching for this entire time, and I have witnessed such a dramatic shift that I know through measurable evidence that I see every single day that things have taken a turn for the worse. And Wallace was talking about all this in 2003. And it's not just kids, it's not just teenagers. I have so many friends who, when we're hanging out, they can't resist looking at Instagram, looking at Tinder, whatever. They don't also try to explore deep music, deep books, like whatever. Because to really get into anything requires boredom, even fun things. Like, for instance, if you want to be a really good soccer player or you have a hobby that you're really into, a lot of the time to take things to the next level, there are plateaus that you have to break through that are straight through boredom. For instance, for this YouTube channel right now, I'm trying to learn to get better at Photoshop, to get better thumbnails going, so the people who can't resist being bored want to click on them. However, I hate messing around and learning software. I am not an artist, and it has honestly been a very taxing and boring journey for me for, doing this Photoshop journey over the last couple months. I've seen massive improvements in my thumbnails and what I'm doing, but I'm able to conquer something like this, a new skill that's foreign to me, because for my entire life, I've been engaged in boredom. In my house, I could only watch TV for an hour at most a day. Maybe in the summer, I could get away with a little bit more. But then for the rest of the day, I had to figure out what to do. My parents were off at work. My sister was 5 years older than me. So I was just left on my own to walk around, to ride my bike, to go outside, to read, to imagine, to play games. And this continued until I was in high school and finally got my own phone. But that phone, all I could do was text and call people. I didn't even have internet on my phone until I was in my 20s. And so that part of my life, and plus just deliberate practice and being bored, has transformed my life immensely. And that's kind of one of the main tenets of this channel and some of my other channels, is learning to become uncomfortable and be bored. And I know it maybe is weird that here I am releasing videos on a very addicting platform, and I'm on TikTok and Instagram. But I feel like these are just mediums for a beautiful message. You can be very bored on YouTube. I've been listening to this audio only lecture series on YouTube recently from, I don't even remember that guy's name, on Logic. And I haven't been this bored in a couple of years, but I know it's going to pay off in the long run. I'm going to be able to share a bunch of nice revelations. It's actually going to help me with a lot of my Wallace analysis content. So let's read another quote, a series of quotes from Wallace on boredom, because what he said here was great, but I think I want to dive a little bit deeper into some stuff from Wallace's point of view. Quote, "I learned that the world of men as it exists today is a bureaucracy. This is an obvious truth, of course, though it is also one the ignorance of which causes great suffering. But moreover, I discovered, in the only way that a man ever really learns anything important, the real skill that is required to succeed in a bureaucracy, I mean really succeed, do good, make a difference, serve. I discovered the key. The key is not efficiency or probity or insight or wisdom. It is not political cunning, interpersonal skills, raw IQ, loyalty, vision, or any of the qualities that the bureaucratic world calls virtues and tests for. The key is a certain capacity that underlines all these qualities, rather the way that an ability to breathe and pump blood underlies all thought and action. The underlying bureaucratic key is the ability to deal with boredom, to function effectively in an environment that precludes everything vital and human, to breathe, so to speak, without air. The key is the ability, whether innate or conditioned, to find the other side of the route, the picayune, the meaningless, the repetitive, the pointlessly complex, to be, in a word, unboreable. It is the key to modern life. If you are immune to boredom, there is literally nothing you cannot accomplish. And I heard this a long time ago from my philosophy professor, that boredom wasn't a concept in the Western world until the 17th century. Because people, when it got dark, the lights went out, and people, until they got to be literate and understand different parts of life and reality, never really were bored. There was always something to do. There was always something to grind on. But now when we have so many options and have so much leisure time, we can be bored. And I haven't been bored in a long time, since I was a young kid. Because when you have enough interest, you do become unboreable. And Wallace, which I love in The Pale King, makes these IRS accountants and these workers heroes. Because, sometimes on this channel, I'll make fun of like accountants or engineers or the sciencey types who really aren't doing that many things artistic with their life, but they are heroes because they are kind of the cornerstone and foundation of our reality, and they are also doing work that none of us can bear to do. I couldn't cut it as an accountant, and there is so much of this happening in reality still, and we don't give that any credit. That is a lost art, a lost appreciation, and praise is the most important thing that we can do as literature fans. And you don't have to believe me. Listen to what Rilke said. To praise is the whole thing. The one who can praise comes toward us like ore out of the silences of rock. Her heart that dies presses out for others a wine that is fresh forever. And Rumi said something very similar. Rilke and Rumi, the R poets who are some of the greatest of all time. Rumi said the ability for a man to be happy is correlated with his ability to praise. And now with the deconstructionist mindset in reality and irony and stuff like Family Guy and South Park, all we do is tear people down. How often do we praise people? And that's what I'm really trying to do on this channel, is offer praise and build people up. That's what Harold Bloom did. Love him or hate him, Harold Bloom was trying to give credit and elevate authors of all different types and bring reading to the people. And so I want to give praise to the forgotten, to the bored. And I feel sad because I don't know what would have happened with the Pale King. And I think that was one of the frustrating parts of the novel, is Wallace had so many expectations on him and pressures about his second novel. And so he was trying to subvert them in the most metafiction way. He had gained strength and power as this metafiction author, starting with little expressionless animals and, moving through Infinite Jest and some of his other stories. And what was going to be next? What was going to be the next level? But he didn't have the energy. A lot of Infinite Jest is a critique of his time at a halfway house and of his family life. And he was using a lot of these like really crazy aspects of his life to fuel it. But suddenly, when he's writing The Pale King for 10 years, he didn't have any craziness left. He was sober. He had a wife for a lot of it. And he was teaching normie classes, living in California and Sonoma, where it's the 75 degrees and sunny every single day of the year mostly. And so that contrast wasn't there. So he wanted to go right through the storm and question the idea of boredom itself and try to make something entertaining and do this kind of inverse commentary on boredom to, it's crazy. And this was all a message, hopefully, to everyone in the world to wake up and stop being bored. He, in 2007 and 2008, when things are spiraling downhill, and he's actually starting to pick up steam on this, because for years, The Pale King was at a standstill. The iPhone is coming out. Facebook, MySpace, all these things are starting to creep in. And Wallace, if not exposed to them, knew about them. And it doesn't take an idiot. He already predicted a lot of aspects of social media in Infinite Jest. And it didn't take an idiot in 2007 to see where things were going. And us today, it can only get worse. It can only get more addicting. It can only get crazier. People are only going to resist boredom more and more. And we can act like there is an awakening. That's one of the things that happens to people in echo chambers, the reading echo chamber. You're like, people are waking up. If I just looked at all my fans and what you guys are giving me and like my friend group, I'd be like, damn, like we're doing a great job. But if I went to the grocery store and asked people about their life and what they do to be bored and the hard pieces of art or knowledge that they grapple with every single month, even for just one time, 99 out of 100, if not 99.9 out of 100, aren't going to be doing that process. Maybe at their job, they're doing some complexities, but they are not actively seeking them out to better themselves. So we are in the process of devolving right now, and we have a structure of society and the boomer class and kind of things holding it together. But what happens when Wallace's generation becomes the old ones? What happens when my generation, who is pretty dumb if I'm going to be honest, takes over things and are in their peak prime and are controlling most of society? There's going to be a general degradation of things. And we're hoping that AI can lift this up, but it only can do so much because it cannot fix the soul of society. So if you guys enjoyed this video, I would love to see you guys in my next video on David Foster Wallace. If you're interested in Cormac McCarthy, poetry, Carl Jung, Dune, I have a bunch of those videos on the channel too, so go check some of those out, and I will see you in the next video.